The name of the podcast is Lexington Stories, Lore, and More, where we uncover the stories and lore behind some of our most fascinating spots and quirky spaces. I'm Alan Lytle. My co-host is Lexington author Fiona Young-Brown. Just for edification, Fiona is the author of Secret Lexington, a guide to the weird, wonderful, and obscure. It's available through Reedy Press. Today's theme, of course, Fiona, is love and romance, since we are so close to Valentine's Day.
It is, and we are also setting out to reclaim Lexington's reputation. So I got a press release the other day, and it claimed that Kentucky was the fifth least romantic state in the nation.
Shiver me timbers.
And
why?
I have no... It's one of those ones that does it all through, based on Google searches for dates and so on. And I prefer to think that we weren't searching on Google for date ideas and Valentine's ideas because we already have them planned, because we are already romantic in nature and have these things at the tip of a hat ready to go. But either way, I think it's important today that we reclaim Lexington's reputation as a romantic place.
Absolutely. You set one foot inside New Circle Road and you can instantly feel the love.
Sometimes, yeah. Depending on the time of day and the traffic conditions.
That's the kind of direction we're going to be going with this podcast today. So I know we have evidence going way, way back as to the love and romance capital of Kentucky was Lexington. What's Exhibit A?
Okay, I searched back through a lot of the newspaper archives, and it amazed me that the one thing we don't have in our newspapers now every year for Valentine's Day is a 2 to 3 page spread about the history of Valentine's Day, how everyone is celebrating, and so on. Now it barely makes the news. But I was looking back, and for example, in the 1899, in the Lexington Herald, there was a full-page article about how to celebrate Valentine's Day. And this was recognizing that sometimes the fancy dinner at the restaurant may be a little too expensive, perhaps budgets are tight. And so instead, this was giving tips for the perfect Valentine's breakfast or lunch. And it contained everything, tips on making sure you had heart-shaped invites for your group, red and pink flowers, of course.
Of course, yes, yeah.
How to dress, what games one might play, and so on for that perfect Valentine's Day not even a soiree, a morning, I suppose, that everyone would be talking about afterwards. And then in 1901 in the Herald, again, there was a huge, and again, I'm really surprised by how long these pieces were, because they would go deep into back in the Roman times. This was who Valentine was, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, just on and on, columns worth dedicated to this. Maybe there was nothing else going on in town.
Well, you didn't have radio, and you didn't have television. You certainly didn't have the internet. So newspapers...
You had to read this.
Yeah.
And it was talking about the history of the day, how it happened. And this was the one, I'd forgotten about this. There was some really mean statements that only the newspapers of the day managed to get this meanness in that made me read it and think, oh my gosh, who wrote that? They stated that those who didn't receive a Valentine's, the only people who didn't receive a Valentine's were, quote, overfed policemen, hobo types, antiquated dames, and the horrible pug uglies.
Pug uglies.
Yes. So that was apparently, I gasped when I read that as to who was reading it.
Is that kind of akin to having a face only a mother could love?
I suppose so. They also then remarked, they'd always do a thing as well from the post office talking about, the extra mail that they were dealing with this time of year, and remarked that the chief of police had received a Valentine, several members of the city council, but they didn't know who they were from.
Anonymous.
Ooh.
Please be my Valentine. Yeah, we swapped those in grade school as well. So these are part and parcel of the entire Valentine experience going all the way back to, as you just mentioned, the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Definitely. And even, I mean, way, way, way right into the 1930s, the 1950s, the newspapers would still kind of do this annual, it is Valentine's Day, what is everyone doing? The post office says they're really busy and so on. So it was a big part of the year. And I suppose, like you said, with no radio, no TV, and let's face it, it's icy out there. We want something fun to look forward to.
Indeed. The papers also, I guess they used to have things like the Lonely Hearts Club. And these were people that just, hey, I really need romance. I need love in my life.
Yep. You'd see all of the specials, all of the ads for, suggested gifts this year, where to get your flowers, where to get your card. And of course, for the ladies, if you were being taken out, you couldn't possibly go out on Valentine's Day without your new fancy hat or, some new accessory and so on. So it was a full thing.
Was the level of being ostracized if you did not have a date for Valentine's Day? I mean, nowadays we have what they call Galentine's Day, and that's for the folks that are unattached and just out for a good time.
Yeah, I think now it's become much more of a, it's more about having fun. It was hard to tell. There wasn't any, well, I'd say there wasn't any outright mockery, but then you had that thing saying that the only people who didn't get them were kind of old
Pug
maids
ugly.
and the pug uglies and overfed policemen. I'm not sure what they had going on. So, I mean, there was back then, there seemed to be a certain amount of, I don't know, pity, or if you weren't in on this, then what did that say about you? There was a certain amount of sort of mockery, I suppose.
And I'm guessing that there was certainly a high level of matchmaking in certain communities. Let's say if you went to a certain church, there would probably be someone in the congregation that had earned a reputation of being a matchmaker.
Definitely. And I think that, like you said, within churches, within certain social circles and so on, that making that match by a certain age definitely was sort of much more expected. And so from that angle, I guess, if you were lonely, then for whatever reason you had not been able to be matched. That said something about you in itself. So.
Well, then you get the reputation of being, quote unquote, an old maid.
The antiquated dames, as they said. I kind of like the idea of being an antiquated dame. Dame has so much more to it.
Oh, yeah.
Than old maid.
We still have dames in this day and age. Was it Dame Judi Dench?
Exactly. In Britain, dame is the female equivalent of a lord. So that's something to be, pleased with. That's, you can be sir or dame so-and-so. So that is nothing to be ashamed of.
No, and I'm thinking back to South Pacific. There is nothing like a dame.
Dame's got a bit more of a kind of spunky, sparky feel to it.
Yes. The love, romance, it's a huge part of everyone's life at one time or another. Flash forward to today, there are a number of locations around Lexington that have earned a reputation as being one of those places where romance can bloom. And the first one I'm thinking of, Fiona, is just outside of Lexington. It's the castle on Versailles Road.
Definitely. I mean, what could be more romantic than taking your date, whisking them away to a castle? And it sounds so romantic, and then they're not even having to get you on a plane somewhere. They're just taking you straight down the road. We've got one here on the doorstep.
You don't have to wear a suit of armor either, as the
that
guys
is
go.
Definitely a benefit, I think, for most people. But no, the castle is definitely I'm sure a very popular place for Valentine's Day. It's definitely popular for weddings. And it's kind of full circle for it in a way, because it was originally built as this romantic gesture. Then that kind of fell by the wayside and it all fell apart for a while. But then it was finally completed. And so now we do have this incredibly romantic place where people go for their dates, their weddings, their engagement photographs, and so on.
The backstory, of course, was the gentleman from Lexington?
He was, I believe, from Lexington, and he was very rich. I mean, obviously, you kind of have to be very rich if you want to build a castle. Or, well, I mean, I want to build a castle, but I definitely don't have the money to do it. But yes, so he was from Kentucky, from central Kentucky, and he married in 1969. He married a couple of years earlier, probably, but in 1969 was when he started building it.
And what's the guy's name?
Rex Martin.
Rex Martin. Okay.
And he had got married. He had taken his wife on the romantic honeymoon around Europe. And that is where they had seen all of these fairy tale castles, France and Germany. There are so many gorgeous castles. And she was just blown away by this and said, I want one. And whereas my husband would probably say, that's nice, I can buy you a Lego castle, maybe. He was rich enough to say, let's build one.
Probably an impetuous fellow.
It does strike me as, yeah.
You want it, baby? You got it.
You got it. You want it, anything for you. And so he started building this castle out near, if everyone I'm sure knows where it is, out on Versailles Road, past Keeneland as you're heading out of town. And it's kind of, I will have to throw this in because whenever I chat to local historians, they always get very upset that it's not architecturally accurate. But it's a fairy tale castle, it was designed, it has the turrets, it has everything that you imagine a castle would have. Obviously, building a castle is not a quick, 6 months construction project. And it was still being built by 1975, which is when they split. Had she got tired of waiting for this castle? We all know that construction projects drag on at the best of times. But for whatever reason, they got divorced. And suddenly there was no reason to complete the castle, and I'm sure it was probably just a miserable reminder of a failed marriage, and so he moved away, and it just sat there.
Left to ruin, I guess. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, it was just pretty much left. I remember the first time I came here, it was the thing, you've got to go see the castle. And then you'd hear the story that no one was living in it, and so on. And so that was it. And I think about nearly 30 years it seems to have sat empty. He moved, from what I remember, he moved down to Florida and never came back to the property. There were rumors from time to time that he would sell it, but he never could quite bring himself to. So I kind of feel as if there was this part of him that was just clinging on to this lost idea of romance and love and so on. In 2003, he died, and so that's when it was sold to Thomas Post, who was an attorney, and that's when did it become the Castle Post?
Yes,
I think
I do
was
believe
the name
that,
of it.
Yeah, early 2000s, yeah.
And he set about doing all the renovations. Everyone got very excited, and then 1 year later, there was the fire. And I remember waking up one morning and all over social media, the news, the castle was on fire. And apparently it had been struck by lightning, I seem to remember, in one of the towers during a storm. And
what dumb
you
luck.
could see that for miles. I mean, I could just remember the smoke and the flames and everything. But and that would have been, to me, it would have been the ideal time to say, you know what, let's just sell the land. This is Lexington. You could have sold that land for a subdivision or something by now. But nope, Thomas Post, to his credit, said, let's rebuild. And he did. It opened as a bed and breakfast in 2007. And I remember touring just after it opened. And the inside is as wonderful as, and sort of romantic and beautiful as the outside. It was sold a couple of times. In 2017, it became the Kentucky Castle. And it is now a hotel, wedding venue, restaurant, farm-to-table kind of place. There is a spa. There are tennis courts. You can stay in one of the tower suites, which are actually very, very nice. So, yeah, now it's become a romantic place. And I should point out, Architectural Digest said that it was the most beautiful castle in the state, which I think it's probably the only
I
one.
would think so.
I mean, don't get too excited by that acclaim. But it did also say that it was one of the most beautiful castles in the world to sleep in.
Interesting. So we resurrect something and give it a new purpose, or actually a renewed purpose for love and romance. And people have, for a long, long time, looked at that spot with maybe mixed emotions, but now it's completely all positive, really, if you think about it.
It is, and I think it's, the story behind it just makes it all the more kind of loved by everyone locally, I think. That's our landmark. When people come to town, you have to show them, we have a castle, look at us.
Now, downtown in Lexington, people can get their picture taken in front of a kissing lamppost. So talk about that.
They can. And now you've said that, there may well be a long line of romantics on Valentine's Day waiting in line. Maybe we've created something new. And this is one of those things where you kind of notice it more if you're in one of the buildings looking out. Because, how many times do we look up as we're walking around? Mm-hmm. But next time you are walking down Main Street by a 21C Hotel, if you happen to look up, you will notice that two of the lampposts are intertwined as if they are about to kiss. So we have practical art that is also incredibly romantic. And it's one of those things, again, I'd never noticed because you don't look up. But once you know it's there, then every time you look at it. So
what's the story there?
Okay, our kissing. Well, as you know, the 21C is kind of an art museum and hotel. And so they have some beautiful art inside and out if you haven't been there to visit. And you don't have to stay there. You can actually just go in and look around the art museum part. The 21C is also in Lexington's first skyscraper. It may be hard to imagine now, we've got Big Blue and all of those right across the street, but this was originally the first skyscraper in town. So the lampposts, the kissing lampposts, as they are, commonly known, their real name is Totally in Love, and they are by a Dutch artist, Piek Bergman. I hope I've said that right. And he describes them as two working lampposts intertwined in an eternal dance of affection. And if that isn't romantic, I don't know what is. Their lamps curve towards one another, suspended in the moment just before a kiss. And so the building was built back in 1913, the tallest in Lexington at the time. And then it was a bunch of different things over the years, but then 21C bought it, completely renovated it. It is now a fabulous hotel, restaurant, art museum, gallery, and so on. So you have this art outside that is kind of beautiful and practical. They commissioned the lampposts in about 2012, I think, round about there, just as they opened. And they're just a beautiful piece of art. You can either notice them as you're outside, you can look up and perhaps kiss under them. Or if you're looking around the art gallery inside, you can also look down and get a really good view of them. And I should add as well, if you're looking for extra romance at 21C, this sounds like a commercial and I promise it isn't, but there are also a couple of themed rooms within the hotel, one themed for Queen's Gambit, but one is also an art installation, and it's called Night Watch. And at night, there are lights in the room that kind of project birds flying across the walls and shadows of birds in flight and so on, which is another way to impress your Valentine's date.
Wow, that does sound quite memorable. And, you also get some cool points along with your romance.
There you go. I mean, it's all about scoring the points for being the most creative Valentine.
Okay, in keeping downtown, what about another, romantic hotspot, if you will?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of restaurants downtown, and obviously, married couples always like to get their photos taken in front of the old courthouse and so on. I think one restaurant that I definitely didn't know about until probably a couple of years ago is the Infinity Rooftop Bar and Grill. And it's at the top of the Marriott. I think I've got the hotel right. But you can sit by the window and watch the cityscape go by. You can watch from the rooftops. It was actually very pretty the first time I went there. It was snowing. And so we were sitting up there. You could see all the lights reflecting, people down below and so on. So that's kind of a nice way to see across the city. I'm trying to think. I mean, there are lots of restaurants down there. So plenty to choose from.
Yeah.
Also, if you want something kind of quiet and secret, for your little cozy tete-a-tete for Valentine's Day, there is the Constitution Speakeasy.
Oh, yes.
Down on Church Street.
I've heard about this.
If you haven't been there, that is a lot of fun. It's easiest to make reservations in advance. So if you're planning to go for Valentine's Day,
you're probably out of luck, to be honest.
You may be by now. But if you get reservations either then or for another time, it's a great little spot to go. It really is. You kind of have to know the secret knock and so on to get in. And once inside, you can either have a cozy little booth at the back, which does feel kind of like you're not being seen and you're hidden away. Or I also recommend sitting at the bar. It's just a small bar area, but it's fun to watch them make all the cocktails and see the artists at work as well. So.
Okay, now let's say the weather breaks and...
It may do. One day. One day it has to.
Come on, Groundhog. You got to give us something here. Outdoor, I've heard about these places where people, like on nature walks, they'll get down on one knee and make the ultimate question. So one that comes to mind immediately is the Arboretum.
And now, of course, you've put that in everyone's mind. So if anyone goes on a nature walk now on Valentine's Day, they're expecting the person to get down on one knee. I just want to warn people that he's put that out there. I mean, I personally am a huge fan of the outdoors and getting outside, and Lexington has some beautiful parks and areas. The Arboretum, obviously, is gorgeous. It's great to walk around. There are so many little areas within it, and it is perfect. There are lots of little quiet, sheltered spaces where you can get down on one knee. Be careful if it's icy. You may want to kind of ease down onto one knee, and you may need some help getting back up. But the Arboretum is a beautiful spot for that romantic walk. I'd say a picnic, but I doubt that the weather will get that
No, I
pleasant,
think you're there
that
for a
accommodating.
specific purpose, and then you got to get back in the car.
Yes.
Yeah.
So drive there, say this is really pretty in the snow. It's even prettier when there are flowers. Get down on the knee, pop the question, get back to the car quick, and then go somewhere warm. So the Arboretum is a good spot. McConnell Springs is always wonderful, although probably still very icy at the moment, so take care there. But again, for some beautiful history and just a nice, surprising spot in the middle of Lexington. If you haven't been there before, you will think that you are being taken completely the wrong way. There's a quarry, there's a bunch of industrial stuff, and then there it is. It's sort of this little oasis in the middle of everything.
That's on Old Frankfort Pike.
Yes.
Yes.
As head towards the animal shelter, and then you will start seeing signs to turn off. And again, that's where you really think that they're taking you the wrong way. And then there it is. And of course, the other one that I absolutely love and is perfect for a romantic hike during daytime, because they do close at dusk, is Raven Run. And again, if it's not too icy, you could go down, you could have that spot overlooking the Kentucky River up in the Palisades. You could get down on one knee, propose, and then fairly quickly make your way back to the warmth of the car.
Well, so we have put out all of these little suggestions. It's obviously up to you, our dedicated listeners, to decide for yourself which one, or if any of them, make any sense to you.
Or you could have an incredibly busy day and try and do them all. Just go for it. Call in sick from work and just go around town quickly having the Valentine's breakfast with the heart-shaped invitations and the red flowers. Then, go to get the mail. I have to wonder about, I think the post office probably doesn't deliver as many Valentines now. So many e-cards and things.
Oh, yeah. The only Valentine I think I've received in the last 10 years has probably come from my mother, which she always remembers. God bless her. It's one of those things that, yes, we used to, with great dedication, write out those Valentines and send them.
And I have to say, the last time I sent one to one of my young nieces a few years ago and mailed it. And maybe this speaks to how little mail people get now. And also, particularly, I think youngsters are not used to the mail. She was partly terrified that she had this mail, that it was unsigned, that she didn't know who it was from, but they knew where she lived and so on. So kind of a sign of the times that the romantic mailed Valentines may not be that anymore.
It's a very interesting way that our society has changed and probably will never go back to that again, I would not think.
I wouldn't have thought so. But even without our Valentine's cards in the mail, there are plenty of ways, I hope, that we've shown you can find romance in Lexington.
Yeah.
And definitely not the least romantic state in
No.
the nation.
I think we have bolstered our case that's a bogus and flawed survey, shall we say.
Exactly. I know that you are a romantic bunch out there and you are all just on top of Valentine's Day. So.
While we have this moment, you're doing some research, yes, on bell breezing?
On a little bit on bell breezing, but also more focused on the other ladies of the night, or the ladies of the, as they were called in the newspapers, the resorts of Lexington during that period.
Wow, how did they get that name, resorts?
I know. I think of resort as a holiday camp or something. But yes, they went through various names, houses of ill fame. Resorts seem to be kind of the nice euphemism that
well, if
they
I can't
settled
have
on.
Belle, I will resort to...
Oh, that's
perhaps.
terrible.
I know.
But yes, I am. So.
and what are you finding out about that?
I'm actually finding out so much about so many different women because I kind of feel bell breezing everyone has heard of, and everyone knows about her. She's famous and so on. But there are so many other women in Lexington, either madams who were just not as well known as Belle, but definitely successful, and then all of the women who came in and worked at the brothels from time to time. And so I'm really having fun uncovering their stories, realizing the so many multitude of different reasons that affected women's lives back then. If your husband died and you had children to raise, how could you support them? Maybe you were just passing through town. Maybe this was a career. Maybe this was a way of escaping an unhappy marriage. Just so many different stories that I'm uncovering there.
And that's going to end up in a book sometime.
I definitely hope so. That is the plan.
All right. Well, I think we've given our listeners a number of ideas and some background on why Lexington is, if not the romance capital of Kentucky, it's right up there.
I'd say it's definitely up there. And you know what? I'm going to put one out for Lexington and say it's the romance capital of Kentucky.
Oh,
there we go.
Yeah, just stick
Let's
that neck
claim
out.
that title.
Well, Fiona, thank you again for stopping by today. We'll be back again next month with a different topic, but this is Lexington Stories, Lore, and More, and it's been the Love and Romance edition. Peace, love to you and yours this Valentine's Day.